Preparing to live stream. Setting up. Preparing to live stream. Ready to go, Saraya.
Okay. Thank you and greetings everyone. From wherever you are calling in, we welcome you to listen to this important conversation, most timely and most urgent. When people stop talking, bad things happen. Prove me wrong. That is what Charlie Kirk said. So we welcome you to this Muslim panel on Charlie Kirk's tragic murder and its implications for America and particularly the Muslims in America. My name is Soraya Dean. I lead the Muslim Women Speakers Movement, and I'm going to briefly tell you what the program format will be today. We have a great panel of expert speakers. I'm going to do a brief introduction and an introduction to them, and there will be statements from each panelist, and we will engage in questions. And if you have any questions for us, please post it in the chat. Before I proceed, I must tell you, we are united in this understanding, and that's why we are together today. There is a vacuum in Muslim leadership in the United States of America. The Council on American Islamic Relations, the Muslim Public Affairs Council, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, they are not doing the work they are called to do for the American Muslims today. They might occasionally be addressing some issues, but that is not sufficient. The council is focused on Mahmoud Khalil and hijab for women. And the Muslim Public Affairs Council talks about electing a socialist in New York. Ilhan Omar, who is from Somalia, teaches us how to run the United States of America. And Rashida Tlaib defines from the river to the sea to the American public. But for us, American Muslim women who are gathered here, together with my colleague Wajid Said, we have different issues. We are raising our children to be proud Americans. We want them to call out anti-Americanism and anti-Semitism. We want them to call out hate, and we want them to uphold free speech. We are a coalition of Muslim women from diverse organizations. Our work is centered around addressing rising hate, and as I told you, anti-Semitism, anti-Americanism, violent extremism, which is connected to radical Islamist agendas. Condemnations, as you might have observed, for Charlie's deaths from Muslim leaders have been non-existent, or it has been a plethora of ifs and buts. Today, we condemn those fragile condemnations. There cannot be any ifs and buts. We live in this great, magnificent country of United States of America. Free speech is not simply a shield for popular opinions, but it must be a battleground for conflicting ideas. To Erika Kirk and to her 2 children, we offer our deep condolences. America has lost one of its brightest and bravest voices. And I was listening to Charlie the other day, and somebody asked him what was his favorite quote, and he said, "This too shall pass." And to Erika, these words will not offer any condolence at this time. But we take to heart also the message of Charlie where he said, as we speak truth, love should prevail. And we know in Mark 11:27, God is very clear, Jesus is very clear in giving this message. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor just as much as you love yourself. So we hope the new movement, the movement that Erika is spearheading, will be inclusive of us Muslims as we share truth and love to the American communities. And for international listeners, I say Charlie Kirk, who founded the Turning Point United States of America, was killed on September 10, 2025, while speaking at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. He was just 31. And he was assassinated for having an opinion, an idea, and he thought differently. He was silenced and murdered while he was engaged in public debate. And my friends and listeners, this didn't exist in a vacuum. All of us, Muslim women in particular, we have been silenced on almost all the platforms today. And let us never forget, free speech is a cornerstone of American democracy. And exercising this fundamental right has come to us with serious consequences. So as we listen to our panelists today, you might wonder, is this political violence, or is it that the Western civilization has reached a critical point, and what we need to do in order to claim this space and to uphold the values of our Constitution. Our panelists include Anila Ali. She is the galvanizing force behind us, and she's the galvanizing force behind all this work that we are doing today. Anila is an outspoken civil rights advocate, educator, and a philanthropist dedicated to challenging stereotypes and bigotry. As a Muslim leader and activist, she has worked tirelessly to empower female leadership, promote religious freedom, and counter violent extremism. Her lifelong commitment to justice and equality and equity has made a lasting impact on communities, both in the United States and globally. And our next panelist is Wajid. Wajid Ali Syed is a veteran journalist and a documentary filmmaker. He has worked on US policy towards the Middle East and South Asia. He runs Abraham Research and Publishing Company that counters hate and anti-Semitism. And also with us is Farhana Khurshid. She's an executive director of the New England Bangladesh American Foundation, a community leader, a social activist, a women's rights advocate. She's also the board member as American Muslim Multi-Faith Women Empowerment Council, as I am today. And she's the co-founder of The Collective. And she's a steering committee member of Saheli. So I'm going first to Anila to ask her this question. And I would like for Wajid to also comment. Charlie Kirk's assassination was a violent attempt to silence a voice. As a Muslim American, as Muslim Americans, many of us have faced silencing, not with bullets, you say, Anila, but through intimidation, labeling, and exclusion. Can you share a personal experience of this and how it shaped your resolve to keep speaking? Anila.
Thank you, Soraya, and thank you everyone for joining us. I think it's a very important conversation for us to have because it is in memory of Charlie. Charlie Kirk, I became a bit of a fan because he is my son's age. And for him to go out there and say, look, we're all Americans. I may not agree with you, but let's have a conversation, was exactly what I tried to do as a Muslim American faith leader after 9/11. To go to the people who didn't know who we were and talk to them and say, listen, we're not all terrorists. So this, Soraya, began after 9/11. Reaching out to the other side, having conversations, having dialogues. We are interfaith leaders. Whenever there is an attack on one, we say, well, we're all together. But how often do we sit and learn about each other? And that has been one of the goals of AMWEC, to reach out to everybody, left, right, center, everyone, even far left and far right. We have gone and we have spoken and we have tried to find common shared values and say, let's find things that we have in common. We don't have to agree with each other, but let's not silence each other. Let's listen so that we don't do what terrorists do. They dehumanize the other. So I feel that we are stuck in this algorithm now, that I'm only going to listen to my voice. Now, I want to tell you something that happened when Ilhan Omar was elected. Obviously, we were an organization, as you know, that was standing up to terrorism in America, that was standing up to extremist voices in our mosques and in our Muslim students associations on the campuses and everywhere. We were the only organization. And yes, it was important to do that as mothers. It still is. But it was also important to go to the people that say that they are on our side, like the Democrats and the far left, and say, Ilhan Omar, respectfully, you're a Muslim. You should have brought Israelis and Palestinians together. You were the first Muslim woman from Somalia to have the honor of being in this house. And so we wrote a post saying, congratulations to you. Congratulations to Rashida Tlaib. But are you going to do what, as a Muslim, I'm supposed to do, build peace? Or are you going to come in and divide? And when her tweets were going out, as an organization, as kind of an executive, I took the decision of posting that what you have done is you have just legitimized hate for Jews with your tweets. Do you think that had backlash on us? Yes. We were silenced, not just by our own people. Our own board members came and they came and said, you know, my children are saying that Auntie Anila must not put that. Oh, so you're listening to your children and you're not understanding how it is going to affect those children, which it is, which it has, which it will. And they obviously, a couple of them left at that time. And then we started facing the backlash of our community and of the the Democrats in California. You're from California, Soraya. You know how hardcore they are. It's very hard for them to acknowledge that I'm a woman of faith. Faith matters to me. And yes, I protect religious freedom because that matters to me. They also tried to silence us. No, don't write this, don't write that. In fact, you know, there were Democrats who were Muslims. They were Muslim Brotherhood / CARE, and they did an entire campaign against our organization and against me as a person as well. I could not go to my own local mosque because they told me, you bring in the Jews, so you can't come. And they started harassing, intimidating me, my family, my friends, my board members, everybody. And so we decided either we're going to take them on or we're going to cower and let these people rule. They couldn't hear a different side. They often came and said, sister, if you drop your support for the Jews, they will use you. Then we will let you thrive. We'll let you win elections. We'll let your candidates win elections. And every time our candidate won an election, whether it was on a mosque board, whether it was in America, Laurie Saroya Hedri being an example of it, she took on CARE. What did they do? They sent her to the hospital. She had a hemorrhage in the brain. Luckily, she survived. She sued them, didn't get justice. What happened to her? She was silenced. And we as Muslims should be standing up and saying, we've got to listen to both sides. You know, we're not listening to each other. We're not listening to each other in the Democratic Party. Just when we started writing, we're a nonprofit. We work with whoever is in power in America. And we work for the benefit of the Muslims, to get them internships, to get them jobs, and to also, you know, empower the moderate Muslims so that they have a louder voice than the extremists. So we are going to work with this present administration. Two of our Democratic board members called and left. What does that tell you? That they do not want us to speak, that they want to silence us as well. And I think, you know, you mentioned correctly, AMWAC page on Wikipedia, they took it down after we stood up on October 7th for Israel and the Israelis. And I spoke to the CEO of Wikipedia, and he wrote me a most scathing email, intimidating me and saying, "You'll never be on." And I said, "I don't need you. I know who you are. We don't need you." And we have our own platform, and there are many more Muslims like us who will stand up against these platforms. My Facebook page still banned with 300,000 followers. Why? Because I was writing after October 7th. Same thing happened to you, Soraya. Almost all of us at AMWEC, we have been silenced in social media. On Twitter, I'm banned from promoting my tweets, but everybody else is allowed to do that. On TikTok, I'm banned from promoting my tweets until 2049 because I stood up for Israel. Now, you tell me, what are we doing with our country? What are we doing with our children? This is definitely turning point. USA, wake up. And it is stifling people like us. It is hurting the conversations that can help America build the foundations of democracy that you just mentioned. That dialogue is the only way. Do you remember, Soraya, Farhana, Wajid, when President Trump was being elected? And, there was a lot of talk, he's going to come and change things the first time. I wanted to know who the MAGA people are. I wanted to know them because even after 9/11, we went and we spoke to our conservative brothers and sisters on the far left and the ones in the center, because we said there are Muslims like us. We liked that conversation. What happened? We got labeled. If we're talking to MAGA, if we're saying anything to do with the Republicans, we can't be Democrats. Well, we don't want to be. We want to be Americans. We just want to be Americans who know each other, who understand. Yeah, you have a different viewpoint. I do too. My kids don't agree with me on everything, but we talk and we sit down. And to pick up a gun and silence someone, a young man, 31 years old, with a family, because he wanted to bring Americans together, it is, I think it calls for a radical reform that I call on President Trump and our House and Senate to look at why we are being silenced. Whether we are on the far left, far right, center, America is not a country that silences anyone. What happened? That was the reason I moved to America, to be my own voice, because I couldn't. I lived in Saudi Arabia. I couldn't say a word. I lived in England. My father was a diplomat. I would go to the speaker's corner and speak, and then I was told, "No, don't say this, don't say that." I was silenced everywhere. America was the only country where I felt I wasn't silenced until I went into politics. So is politics going to do that to everybody?
Right. Thank you, Anila. I feel, as you do, that in the Muslim community, particularly, we are qualified to talk about this. And I believe in the philosophy of Dr. King, who talked about the concept of moral reciprocity. We have to first fix what is inside. He said, go to the community, see what is wrong within your community before you come out and try to fix others. I believe, as you do, I think there has been a concerted effort to take away freedom of speech so that we can be led dumb and silent as sheep to slaughter. And there is an agenda there. We'll get to that in our next question. I want to go to Wajid now. Wajid, the question I asked Anila was, I know for sure that you, as her, have experienced and faced silencing, not with bullets, but through intimidation, labeling, and exclusion. Can you share a personal experience of this and how it has shaped your resolve to keep speaking?
Um, Thank you. As the proverb goes, if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a whole generation or a nation. So thank you for leading this, all you women. I'm a part of the women speakers, so I'm kind of elated as well, and just wanted to thank you for doing this. Um, I'm gonna start with my utmost disgust for what happened and the condemnation of uh, this murder. As a journalist, I'm going to look at in a bigger picture where this person, this young man, was out there being politically active. The person who killed him was also politically active because he did what he did was because of his conviction of what he thought was wrong. Now, he could have chosen another way. My point being that we are living in a very polarized world right now. And I can expand that further. It reminds me of many other political assassinations that happened in the past in America, not just in America, but across the world. And now this new generation that is coming up is learning their own ways of dealing with things. They could have learned to sit together, to listen, to disagree, to disbelief, and everything else, but pick up guns and try to kill each other. That is not what is happening, again, because of the polarization that we are seeing right now. I can go behind when Sarah Milgram was killed right in this city, Washington, D.C. I can give you example of what happened in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and now coming up in other countries as well, where these young people are choosing the way that is violent um, instead of having a dialogue. But who are you going to have that dialogue with? Because this is a slippery slope. If one person, for their views, is silenced, then the other side also uses that tactic to silence the other person. My point being also that now you can increasingly see that the TV shows are being blacked out, are taken off air just because the other point of view is different from yours. So again, it's a slippery slope. What we need to do probably is to bring people together with diverse ideologies, thought processes, and then make them sit together. This, as horrific as this incident was of Charlie's killing, this is going to have an impact, slowly but surely. And that's very a terrifying thought. The far left, as the administration and the far right thinks, is being radicalized, so is the far right as well. So to calm this down, to bring them together is going to be an uphill task. You asked about silencing. Yes, we have not been shot yet, but for what we have been standing up, for what we have been writing, for what we have been saying, we were intimidated. We were harassed. Just last night, we were talking about people posting in a language that doesn't suit them, that shouldn't be employed, that shouldn't be used, just to harass, just to intimidate, just to threaten. So this is an ongoing process that needs to be looked at, that needs to be countered, and the flames that are burning from the right side to the left needs to be washed over. Otherwise, this is going to turn into something that this society, this constitution, this country does not believe in, never believed in. So this assassination, I'm going to say, is one of those that is going to have an impact, a fallout, which is terrifying, and which is not going to calm things down. And we need to work towards a solution where we all could come together, where all we could disagree with each other, but respect each other and not go this far.
Mm. Thank you. So, who do you think has to play a major role in this beautiful suggestion you have? Should it come from the top down or from the bottom up? What role do we have as social justice activists, and what role does the government have to instill that culture? Because I
Yeah,
don't see that happening either.
Yeah, you're right, because it is going to start with the administration as well, to realize how political disagreement is important. You criticize each other. As a journalist, I know that when we write, we do not write to just praise one side or the other. We write about what is in favor of the public, of the general public, and we have to inform them what is happening. And the dissenting voices need to be respected, need to be looked at as a positive criticism, and then needs to be countered, if you will, if you want to, surely. But then to come to the point where you either use violence to silence these voices is not going to help. So yes, it is an bottom up and the other way around as well, an approach where you have to come together, and there has to be authority. That could be the government, that could be the administration, that could be all these institutions that have been working for centuries now, to come together and to have that sort of voice. We have witnessed in the last few years how I want to say left, but not far left, but left has used to have every other quote unquote inclusive voices. But we have also witnessed where they led us. They led us to a rise in the right wing, silencing the voices of the right wing. Where they were, you can see the division there. America as a whole is now not just a society, but it's all polarized, but also divided. The urban areas do not know what the rural areas are, about how those people live there, and what their concerns are, what their priorities are, compared to what the East Coast and the West Coast areas of the brackets that form on both sides have their own different agendas, have their own political reach outs, which has nothing to do with the rest of America. So bringing them together, having your faiths and beliefs as a positive force to include people, as you mentioned, love thy neighbor. So there is no love among neighbors right now. So you have to bring that, you have to respect that. Until you respect that, you can counter that. This is not going to work. And the young generation that is coming up, they need to understand that. They need to be part of the political system. They need to understand what patience is and what political dissent could be, and not resort to anything that is violent. Thank God for the justice system for now that is working here. That the recent killings that we have seen, if every single time the perpetrators were captured, are going through the justice system right now. But what if the large masses, like I mentioned, Nepal, what happened in Nepal? So there are people who are responsible for leading that sort of thing. That should not have happened. You cannot resort to violence. You have to teach your young generation how to sit together and talk. And even if you differ from each other, you have to respect that.
Thank you, Wajid. Yeah, so important. Um, I want to go now to Farhana. She works in the community, social worker. So I want to relate this particular question to Farhana in such a way that how it impacts her community. Farhana, so you work in the social sector. How do you tie that with what Charlie was doing?
Good question, Soraya. What is happening in the United States now? I've been on working in social sector for over 15 plus years, and I haven't seen anything like this, what is transpiring with extremism and hate. Right after Charlie's death, I spoke to my college-going daughter, and she said she shut off the Instagram for 3 days because the hate that was pouring out of that, it was disturbing her. And then she mentioned that she had conversation with her colleagues, her friends, people she just met, and they would refer to, oh yeah, it's sad, he died, but. So my daughter, she mentioned there is no but. Somebody has died. How could you not see that in that lens? Why there has to be justified his death by saying but. So I was concerned. I had a good question, and I kind of mentioned that whatever you hear or you're seeing right now, just make sure that most of the time the social platform uses just segment of things, not the full context. And I sent her this code that's been going around throughout Facebook, especially the platform Occupy Democracy. They are like, I don't know if they represent themselves as Democrat, but they did nothing but fueled hate and intolerance for anybody who didn't see their view. Actually, they were posting over and over again, Charlie's code, I can't stand the word empathy. And they went after him towards that. So I send the full context to my daughter for her to understand that you have to do your research before you engage in anything like that. His quote was, I can't stand the empathy. I think empathy is a made up new age term and it does do a lot of damage. Sympathy is a better word, because sympathy means you are actually feeling, sympathy is a better word, because empathy means you are actually feeling what other person felt, and no one can feel what other person is feeling. So it was taken out of the context and going all over the social media. So with my work, I would say that Shirley has given a platform, what we are doing, going to people's houses and having this discussion, but in different contexts. But he gave a social platform out in the open. And most of the kids, if you listen to all of his debates, are people or students or individual who were looking for direction, who were looking for guidance, who were looking, somebody would answer to their confusion or what they're feeling for themselves, to that dialogue. Although some of the people would not agree with what he was saying because his point of view came from the lens of Christian conservative, but that doesn't mean he should be not valued for his opinion. There is always all sides of the stories. And as parents, we have to do better, like I have done with my daughter. As soon as she came to me with that notion, I had that discussion. Then, be careful and, do your own investigation if you follow what your peers are doing. This is really something that I think we really have to work on at home. We cannot depend on our government or our schools to do all their work. We have to be, as a parents, take responsibility, what conversation we are having with our kids, to have that platform. They don't go to Reddit. There's another social platform. One of my colleagues, a therapist, has told me, Farhana, sit one evening and spend 2 hours on Reddit and see what conversation these young people are having. Instead of going to their parents, seeking for help through community adults or therapists, they're talking to each other, giving each other advice. They're only 17, 18, 12, 13 years old. So as a parent, I think it's our also responsibility to have that conversation. I know we are all busy, but we need to take that time to sit down and talk. And Charlie has provided that in a broader aspect where people, the student and the kids, could come and ask all these questions.
Right. Thank you, Farhana. Two things you brought up that are very important. One is when Charlie Kirk would go to these universities, I'm told the rooms would be packed with 3,000-4,000 people, students, because we are living in a time where robust discussion and debate is taken away. What is seen as free speech is consensus of opinion. And that has to stop. And the second thing, what I'm hearing from what you said, Farhana, is that there's been a concerted effort to portray Charlie as somebody who engaged in hate speech. And that particular example you gave, there is a context to what he said, but it is not revealed in the full form. And our position as Muslim women is that we need to read the context, and as you said quite rightly, have deep conversations in our homes. Thank you, Farhana.
Thank
Second, I want to just make a little point here. We are going to our second question now. We are gathered here. We are Muslims from South Asian origin. I don't want to distinguish between this in a negative way, but for a positive and a purposeful way, I have to distinguish this. 63% of Muslims are from South Asia. We grew up with in pluralistic societies. We grew up with Christians, Hindus, Zoroastrians, Tamils, few Jews maybe, but unlike in the Arab world, we grew up in a very pluralistic society. So we brought to the plate a lot of empathy, sympathy, as Charlie would say, and an understanding of what diversity really is. But what I find in the Arab world, which has less than 20% of Muslims, in the United States today, every conversation is hijacked by an Arab lens. And it is denying us, particularly South Asian Muslims, who come to this plate with some very powerful Eastern values. So on that point, I want to ask this question from Anila. Even the Islam we learned was different from what was taught in the Middle East. The Sharia law was not in our constitutions till very late, when Pakistan had embodied Sharia law in the constitution. But let's get to the question on diversity of thought in Islam. What is this? Where are we Muslims failing? Islam has a rich tradition of debate and scholarship, ijtihad. Yet in America, Muslims with diverse viewpoints often face the harshest pushback from within our own communities. Anila, why do you think this is happening, and how can we reclaim a culture of respectful debate?
I'll give you a story. You know, I was running for office. I was a Democrat, and I went up to the largest Muslim civil rights organization, CARE, Hassam Aloush, who is the head of it. And I said, listen, brother, you and I are different. We're Muslims, Americans, but we're different. I have a different viewpoint, and I don't subscribe to a lot of your views. We don't have a problem with Israel. We're Pakistanis. We don't even have a problem with India because my parents were born in India. And so if you can't support me, don't say bad things about me. Character assassination. I think this was 2015. He was a Democratic delegate, very empowered by the Democratic Party. And because I was a voice that was different, I was standing up to terrorism, which President Obama wanted us to, but yet they couldn't fight that. And this man, he said to me, well, if you drop your support for Israel, then we will help you, sister. Well, I'm not. And how can you assume that all of us are going to be monolithic in our thinking? You are doing exactly what the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, didn't do in his first mosque. He allowed dissent. You know, Bibi Aisha, his wife, one day got really mad at him and said, Ya Rasulullah, these women come and they're shouting and they have these issues and you don't stop them. You are the Rasul. And he said, let them. So what Islam do they follow? These people who are silencing us in this country so that we can be better Americans. Our children can be better integrated into the American culture so that all of our young people don't think that violence is an option. That if you don't agree with someone, I'm going to go get a gun and I'm going to take care of it. There's something that has gone wrong. And like Farhana was saying, what are we doing as parents? We have a responsibility. You know, kids come to school with ideas. There's a student of mine who told me after 9/11, she said, Miss Ali, you're such a nice Pakistani Muslim. When my parents were saying all Pakistanis are terrorists, all Muslims are terrorists. And I said, no, my teacher, she talks to us. She's a good Muslim. That's what conversations can do. That's what they can do to young people. They can strengthen their resolve to fight extremism and to also think there's another side. Let's do what Charlie Kirk did. Let's talk to each other. I don't agree with you on many things. And yes, but we need to talk, and the consequences that we're all going to face, as Muslims, as Americans, as immigrants, they're going to be real. Those consequences are, some will see us as a threat. And that's what we wanted to avoid by making sure everyone understands us. But it was the Muslim Brotherhood in America, and then operating under CARE, ISNA, ICNA, all of these Muslim Students Associations in America, they were against us. Not only did they silence our women, they threatened them. They had to retreat and not run for office. And the one who stood, even till today, our organization suffers from silencing because of this organization. And I say that because of what happened. It was far left ideas that made this kid think that there's no option but violence. There is an option: talking to each other and your ballot. We all know America's the greatest democracy. And we know that there are people who will stand on both sides. They know they will bring people together. But for this young man to think, and for many to think that we're going to silence President Trump, 2 attempts at his life, and then Nancy Pelosi's husband bludgeoned because she was a centrist Democrat. There's a problem with the far left in the Democratic Party, and they have to deal with it. But as Muslims, we also have a problem because we're allowing these men whose values do not align with American values, who claim to be Muslims and leaders of the Muslims in America, we're allowing them the voice, and we're taking away the voice. We're silencing and we're excluding women like us, men like us. Wajid just got attacked by a Muslim NPR journalist, accusing him of being paid by Israel. Well, we were accused as Muslim women of being paid by FBI, by CIA after 9/11, of being a mouthpiece for America. Well, you want to live in America? These are our American federal government agencies. We need to work with them, and I'm proud to work with them. But what do these people do? They make life difficult for us. And the whole idea of having all of this is we go back to the table and we say, let's sit together. Ezra Klein, he's a New York Times journalist. He tried to sit with Ben Shapiro, left, right, sitting together after Charlie Kirk's brutal murder. What happened to him? Kind of the same, except, we are women, so we're easy target. We're also Muslim, so we're easy target. We can also be killed any day. And we have to protect ourselves because today America's become unsafe for people with diverse viewpoints.
That is true. If I may add on
Please do.
a story of my own as well. That since October 7, and you all have witnessed that you were being harassed and pushed back and everything. And even if we have a different view on October 7, what Hamas did, the horrific crimes that they have committed. If you stand up against that, if you say that people who were butchered mercilessly should not have happened, we were tried to be silenced. I have lost friends and family members, and as you all have as well. I just want to point this out to our audience that since then, I tried to engage with the opposite voices. And every single time I'd be there with all my ears, okay, sure, let me know. And they're like, Israel did this and this. And by the way, all that coming from a wrong position without even knowing the history of the conflict, of what has happened, without even realizing what has happened on October 7. And yet there were, right after that, were protests going on college campuses and everything. And you could clearly see just where they were just one-sided. But when you try to engage with them, they'll come up with all these sort of fancy stories about the conflict without even knowing the conflict, without even understanding the history. And I would listen to them, then I say, could I answer that?
Mm.
Could I respond to all your so-called allegations that you have been putting out? And they would say, no, simple no. We were blocked, we were called names, we were done this and that. You cannot even recommend a book for them to read. So it has come to the level where it's just very absurd, um, that even if you try to engage with them, you try to have a conversation. Um, I, I come with the position that you don't have to agree with me, but at least give me the respect that I gave you, which was to listen to your absurd stories. And they would not do that. So this kind of mentality, this kind of the systematic brain drain that now exists in people, where they do not want to even listen to you, has carried on. So we cannot let that pass on to the next generation. We have to have that kind of dialogue where even if you disagree, you have to have the respect and patience to listen to a diverse, a different point of view, and then counter that accordingly.
Mm. Thank you, Wad. It's so important. What you mentioned were that people with secondary knowledge of talking about geopolitical issues, not even willing to engage and find out more. And you're so right. What is critical, I feel, within the Muslim world is we are looking for uniformity of thought. We are not celebrating the diversity of ideas. And that is going to, Anila, if you remember, you gave me this book to read, the misfit, why the Muslims are misfit in the modern world. And I wanted to share this with a good friend of mine. She said, well, you are the misfit. I don't need to read that. And case on point to what Wajid said,
Yes.
not even willing to just read a book, so this is terrible for us.
I know.
And
Yeah.
I don't mind being a misfit. If this is the
Mm,
position that we are carrying and not being part of the majority that is on the wrong side, that's fine. But
Yeah.
you have to have that respect and you have to have that patience and you have to have that integrity to at least read and talk and then
yeah.
converse. But yeah.
I think what is happening is there's a facade. In the front, there is Islam that they are trying to showcase, so that it does not impact sensitivities and it does not call any discussion and debate. But I feel, Anila, at the very rear, at the very bottom, there's a political agenda
Yeah.
that therefore, we are silenced. Oh, you are a Muslim. You cannot talk this way. It's an attack on Islam.
Yeah.
Any kind of free speech is stifled. Do you agree with that, Anila?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
There are so many attempts on silencing us that I can't even tell you. There are so many Muslim women like us that we tried to support in Florida, New York, everywhere, to say it doesn't matter. You have a different point of view, but you have the right to run. And they were a lot of them. And I'm not talking about the Republicans, I'm talking about the Democrats here. And they ran and they lost because the Muslim Brotherhood is so active and so entrenched in the far left of the Democratic Party that nobody wants to take them on. And what they're doing is they're hurting Muslims like us. We're also not monolithic. We have a brain. We all think differently. We're not always Democrats. We're not always, a lot of us are NPPs. A lot of us are religious in our own way. So we don't want to be engaged in left, right, center. So we just say, okay, we're going to vote for our local politics, you know? So why can't you accept that all we're not going to fit in one box, that Muslims are diverse, that we can think, that we can stand on our own. And yes, I have to say, Wajid has been standing up with us, one of the few men in the Muslim world in America that have stood up, but more are following him. We have
Mm.
more imams that have followed us in America, thanks to Wajid taking this stand, going to Israel. The attempt to take our organization down, literally down. You remember, Soraya, we were being featured by a
PBS?
PBS documentary. I don't want to name them because they silenced me into naming them, but they know who they are. They were getting a grant from NEA. And the moment we stood up as an organization and said, the rape of those beautiful Israeli women, was wrong. We are going to Israel to bear witness because our community is denying that Hamas are terrorists, that they did this on October 7th. I got a call from them and said, I won't be able to get the grant from NEA. My board is saying, the board, NEA board said, you cannot feature American Muslim Multi-Faith Women's Empowerment Council because they stood up for women on October 7th. What kind of journalists are they?
Wow.
You know, I don't understand. And what kind of funding are we giving? Are we only funding one side? So all of these politics, they have hurt people. They have hurt our organization. I give you another instance of a Pakistani who called me to Texas and said, I'm going to give you a check, $150,000. Oh, thank you. You believe in us. Wow, we have a moderate Muslim on our side. I love it. And then he said, but nothing, don't put anything about Imran Khan. Personal. So that's not organizational that I should support Imran Khan. I'm in America. I support America. And he took the money away. He's an American Pakistani. So there are so many places where we have been suffering for our opinions, for our standing out. But what I can say today is, well, I pray for Charlie's family, for Erica. May her voice be stronger than anyone's. And may she do what Charlie did, bring people together and listen to the other side. And may she never be silenced. Ameen. But we cannot give in to haters.
Yes, yes.
And we have to, Wajid, you said something a while ago, the language you use. You know, you can have a political debate and say, Anila, why do you support Israel's right to exist? But when you tell everyone that Anila is being paid by the Israelis, what are you doing? You're causing fatwas, like the Iranian regime put a fatwa on my life. I couldn't travel for a whole, even now, I have to be so careful. And even when I go to countries, I get silenced, harassed, intimidated.
I think something that is, and time is running out. There's one
Yes,
last question I really need for you all to weigh in, because what is happening in the Muslim world is that we are demanding for rights, but we are not calling out radical Islamist extremism that is happening within the community. So that needs to change. And I always keep saying that when our rights are taken away, it will not be taken away, it will be given away by each of us because of our current Muslim leadership, that they are not interested in America. You know, they're interested in the Middle East conversation and Middle East issues. So my last question is,
Soraya, I'm just going to interrupt you and say, I, as a Muslim American faith leader, reject the American Muslim leadership.
thank
So,
you.
you know, you said there is leadership. There is none. That leadership, supposed leadership, CARE, ICNA, ISNA, Shura Council, they are not Muslims because they have caused us harm, damage, and not just us. There's a whole list of men and women hurt by them. They silence dissent. They silence anyone who believes in the American dream. They want to convert people to Islam. They follow the Muslim Brotherhood version. It's an ideology. It is not Islam.
Thank you. So my last question is, as Muslims in America, what kind of legacy do you want to leave when it comes to defending free speech, challenging hate, and particularly anti-Semitism? We know that is the thread that is going through all of these hate and silences. And so what do you want to leave? What legacy do you want to leave that will shape a future where Muslims are seen as defenders of American values rather than opponents of them? Because a challenging time is going to come to us. What do you think? What legacy do you want to leave when it comes to defending free speech? I go to Wajid first, and then Farhana and Anila.
I think because we're very short of on time, and because you are the leaders, I think I'm gonna let you guys lead the way, and I'll just follow you. I'll stand by your side.
Thank you, Wajid. Farhana, what is the legacy you want to leave, and how do you want Americans to see us as we are Americans?
Foremost, I'm human first, then my religion. Hate is something when you think about, hating one person, it kind of multiplies into other sectors. So be conscious of yourself, your thought, what you're doing. I would say, if I can even get through few people a day, that your thoughts are leads to your actions. Make sure, doesn't matter what religion you come from, what side you look into, either Democrat, Republic, or anything. To treat everyone as a other human being, and we all have to coexist no matter what.
Thank you. Anila?
First of all, Soraya, I think this is our legacy. You, Farhana, Wajid speaking out, and my children on October 7th telling me, Mom, nobody should be attacking you for your opinions, your beliefs. That's wrong. That's my legacy. My grandchildren, I want them to do the same. Our organization is our legacy, and our lives, I would say, is the legacy. I got a suffragette award in California, but I really feel that this organization and all of us together, we have not been silenced. And there have been so many attempts to kill us, literally. And I'm telling you that with I'm joking about it, but we have fatwas on us. We've been harassed, intimidated in different countries as we travel with our moderate, Muslim, enlightened American views. They don't like us. So our legacy is this.
Thank you, Anila. I'll just close now. Thank you to all the panelists for your beautiful insights. We will be continuing these conversations every Friday from the American Muslim Multi-Faith Women's Empowerment Council. I want to say in deep sorrow, remembering Charlie Kirk again, his experience only illustrates the need for resilience and solidarity among free speech proponents, reminding us that we must support one another against both societal and institutional pressures. We must support one another. In honoring Kirk's legacy, advocates like us must double down on our commitments to uphold free speech, ensuring that every voice, regardless of alignment, has a platform in the marketplace of ideas. Only then can we achieve a truly robust and inclusive dialogue. This country has given us so much, and Anila and I, we work in the religious freedom area. Every Tuesday we listen to cries from people from 100-odd countries. They don't know what we in America, we still don't appreciate this country enough. So our call is that people wake up with deep gratitude and give their best to this country and uphold these precious values like freedom of speech. And I want to thank you all again, thank our listeners, and I say, God bless America. Thank you.
God bless America, and God bless all of you.
Thank you, Anila.